is that it's not research. It's an event that we just have to invite a few close friends. That's why we actually allowed to see each other. So it's a close few friends get together, trying to share some of the findings that we believe that you may be interested. So but I believe many of you may already know us. So I will just a quick introduction. My name is not Andy Yung, and I'm not from F-Secure. I'm Hon from NetAssist. But I didn't really put up my slide because most of you already know us. For those who actually get to know us just lately, just a quick introduction. NetAssist is the leading cybersecurity company, focus a lot of security operations center kind of services, SOC, where we creatively, innovatively use SOC to deliver not only using SIEM to do the log correlation, log monitoring, but we were using EDR to do MDR, managed detection and response. We are using some vulnerability management to do vulnerability management as a services. We are using a couple of best of breed technology trying to deliver managed security services so that we solve your problem of headache of hiring a lot of cybersecurity guys. As you know, they are not cheap. The salary is very expensive. The cost is very high. And on top of that, cybersecurity technology keeps changing. So we're actually solving your problem by, you don't need to actually buy those technology. We buy it, we roll out as a services to you. So that will help you to actually solve the problem of chasing for technologies and also keep on hiring people, motivating people, keeping them happy. Let NetAssist take the pain. We do the job. We deliver the services. You actually do it. You make it look like the OPEX, so that actually make your job easier. And we understand that from time to time, there's new cyber attack happen. And I believe that many of you may have started thinking that, how did it happen now? And you were thinking that maybe I do not want to actually have the time to read through all the detail and to know which one is right, which one is wrong. And many of them have a lot of sales talk. So today, the objective is just exact that. We do not want to sell anything. We just want to share knowledge and make it summarized to you so that you have the knowledge and you know what happened. And that help you to do two things. Number one is that when people ask you, your board of directors, your big bosses, your friends, your colleagues ask you about this, you know how to explain what happened to Kaseya Hacked. Second thing is that then the next people ask you is that, what have you done about it to prevent it? Probably you'll start thinking about it and see what are the things that you can do to prevent this thing from future happening. So without wasting everybody's time, Andy, the show is yours. Please take over from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hon. Let me introduce myself first as well. So I'm Andy. I'm a cybersecurity consultant, solutions consultant from F-Secure itself. So today we will be having a short session, a sharing session about Kaseya's hack itself. So what actually happened during the issue, and then maybe some details on how it happened together with a timeline and how to prevent it in the future as well of these kind of supply chain attacks. So without further ado, maybe I can try to start and explain a bit more onto it. Can somebody mute? Because I think it's, we can hear some background noise over there. Hon, can you help to actually mute?
Sure. Admin, can you help us to mute the rest? Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Okay. So on July 2nd itself, while many businesses are actually having a long or already off day preparing for the long holiday weekend, because on 4th of July, it's actually Independence Day for America itself. But during that period of time, an affiliate of Revil ransomware group actually launched a widespread of crypto extortion gambit. Using an exploit of Kaseya's VSA remote management service, the Revil actors actually launched a malicious update package that targeted customers of managed service providers and enterprise users of the on-site version of Kaseya's VSA remote monitoring and management platform. So what is Kaseya? So maybe I can elaborate more on that as well. So Kaseya is a company that actually provides IT solutions, including VSA, a unified remote monitoring and management tool for handling networks and endpoints. So in addition, the company provides compliance systems, service desk, and a professional service automation platform. The firm's software is designed with enterprises and managed service providers in mind. And Kaseya says that over 40,000 organizations worldwide use at least one Kaseya software solution. So as a provider of technology to MSPs, which serve other companies, Kaseya is central to a wider software supply chain. So Revel's operator actually posted to their Happy blog, a blog owned by them where they actually post all of their success victories. So they claim that more than 1 million devices have been infected and setting a ransom of demand of 70 million USD dollars in Bitcoin to unlock all of them. So Revel has been linked to a huge amount of ransomware incidents, including a high profile incident earlier this year targeting a meat supplier, JBS in America, which claimed to have paid around 11 million USD in June itself. So this is the highest ransom demand to date. The previous record also belonging to Revel, asking 50 million USD after attacking Taiwanese electronic and computer maker Acer. The group has asked $5 million from the MSPs for a decryption tool and 45,000 USD ransom from their customers. However, they again used multiple extensions when encrypting the files, and the 45,000 USD demand was for unlocking files with the same extension as the negotiations with the victims show. So the attacker appears not to have stolen data from networks prior to the attack, a technique commonly used to apply pressure on the victims to pay or risk the exposure of sensitive information. So customers of multiple MSPs have been impacted by the attack. Revel ransomware encrypting networks of at least 1,500 businesses across the world. So the attack is considered, as mentioned just now, the single biggest global ransomware attack on record. Affected are financial services, travel and leisure, even all the computer systems located across 17 countries. A Swedish grocer named Coop is reported to was forced to actually close 800 of its stores for more than 2 days because its cash register software supplier was impacted by the attack. So the attack on Kaseya appears to be financially motivated, but its impact is also a remnant of the attack on SolarWinds Orion network management software itself. So before we go on to further details on how it happened, maybe you will be asking whether is this actually a new ransomware? Is this something new that's on the market again? So, well, not really. So Revel is a ambitious criminal ransomware as a service enterprise that first came into prominence in April 2019. The Revel Group is also sometimes known as other names such as Sodane or Sodinokobi. So there's actually, so you might ask, there's actually a lot of ransomware before. So what makes them so special? So Revel has actually gained a reputation for attempting to extort far larger payments from its corporate victims than the typically seen in other attacks. It is actually they are very actively promoting underground cybercrime forums as the best choice of attacking business networks, where there is more money to be made than infecting the computers of home users. So aside from many high-profile companies and organizations who have fallen foul of Revel, It is actually stealing data from the computers and networks of its victims before they are encrypted. So this is a technique of applying additional pressure on victims, which is becoming more and more commonplace. Revil threatens to release stolen data by auctioning it off on its website, also known as Happy Block, if the ransom demands are not met. So the Happy Block lists recent victims of Revil, attaching a sample of the stolen data as proof that information has been exfiltrated from an organization. The Revil gang even offers a trial decryption to prove that to the victim that their files can be decrypted. A countdown timer indicates that when data leaks will be made to public, applying even more pressure to the companies debating whether should they even respond. Well, you would think it's very nasty. Maybe does actually restoring the backup would be sufficient? Unfortunately, no. That is not going to be enough. Yes, restoring your data from a secure, clean backup can help a company get back up and running again if the backup itself hasn't been compromised, of course. But criminals still have a copy of your company's data. So even if they are unsuccessful in selling your data to other groups in the cybercrime forums, a substantial amount of damage can be done to an organization's brand and business relationships. Just now, I did mention that Revil was a ransomware as a service. So you might ask, what might that be? So as online crime actually become more and more sophisticated, some malicious actors recognize that rather than spending all their time launching their own attacks, they could actually lease out their expertise and infrastructures to other criminals, giving even those without technical ability a means to profit from ransomware. Is it like software as a service, like a SaaS? Precisely, that is how it is. So ransomware gangs have been actually known to offer 24/7 technical support, subscriptions, affiliate schemes, and online forums, just like a legitimate online company. So they know that they are actually offering a quality service to their criminally minded clients, which help both sides of the venture to become rich at the victim's expense. So you might ask that if the attacker is actually paying for a ransomware service from another criminal, couldn't they be tracked and be identified? Well, the thing is, the payments are actually made through cryptocurrency. So that actually keeps the transactions anonymous and making it impossible to keep track and identify who would be the customers itself as well. So that is a background on how Revil is and why it made them so special itself as well. So down to the timeline on Kaseya's attack. So this is a few of the timeline events. So on July 2nd itself, Kaseya's CEO, Fred Vokola, announced that there is a potential attack against VSA that has been limited to a small number of on-premise customers. And then at the same time, out of abundance of caution, Vokola also urged their clients to actually immediately shut down their VSA servers. He also advised that it is critical that the customers do that immediately, because one of the first thing the attacker does is shut off the administrative access to the VSA. So customers were, of course, notified of the breach via email, phone, and online notices. And then as Kaseya's incident response team investigated, the vendor also decided to proactively shut down its own SaaS servers and pull its data centers offline. And then by July 4th itself, the company had revised its thoughts on the severity of the incident, calling itself victim of a sophisticated cyber attack. And then the White House itself also confirmed that it has been actually working with FBI and Kaseya to actually investigate on the Kaseya cyber attack since July 2nd. This shows how important or how big the impact it has on this attack itself. Kaseya then also brought in the cyber forensics experts from FireEye's Mandiant team, alongside with, of course, other security companies to investigate. Our security support, R&D, communications, and customers teams continue to work around the clock in all geographies to resolve the issue and restore our customers to service, Kaseya mentioned. So that is adding more time is needed actually before they can bring the data centers back online. So once the SaaS servers are operational, they mentioned that they will actually publish a schedule for distributing a security patch for the on-prem clients. On July 5th itself, Kaseya said that a fix has been deployed, and then of course would first be deployed to their SaaS environments before and then during testing and validations checks are actually completed. So they are also developing a new patch for on-premises clients in parallel with the SaaS data center restoration. Later on, Kaseya has since then released patches to fix the vulnerabilities on the VSA servers and a compromise detection tool to help scan the system, whether servers or the endpoints, to check whether have they been compromised by the vulnerability or the incident itself as well. So maybe down to more into details of the attack itself. So on the attack, a zero-day vulnerability was exploited by the attackers to actually trigger a bypass authentication and for the code execution, allowing them to actually infect the endpoints with ransomware. Kaseya had already been alerted to at least one of these vulnerabilities, which is the CVE 2021-30116 by the Dutch Institute of Vulnerability Disclosure, and were actually in the process of validating the patch when Revil struck. So the 0 day used by Revil are indeed same as those Kaseya were about to patch. So this is actually a good example of particularly bad timing. So this is not the same as the supply chain attack, such as the SolarWinds attack earlier last year itself, which involves attacks manipulating a supplier's hardware software to compromise the dependent organization. It is similar in both exploit that the trust organization plays in suppliers. So what is a supply chain attack, you might ask? So a supply chain attack is an attack strategy where it targets an organization through vulnerabilities in its supply chain. So these vulnerable areas are usually linked with vendors with poor security practices. A data breach through a third-party vendor is possible because vendors require access to sensitive data to integrate with internal systems. When a vendor is compromised, this shared pool of data is breached. And because each vendor actually stores sensitive data for multiple clientele, a single supply chain often results in multiple businesses suffering an intellectual property breach. So how does the supply chain attack work? So supply chain attacks piggyback on legitimate processes to actually gain uninhibited access to a business ecosystem. So this attack begins with infiltrating a vendor's security defenses. The process is actually much more simpler than attacking a victim directly due to unfortunate myopic cybersecurity practices of many vendors. Penetration could occur in multiple attack vectors. Once injected into a vendor's ecosystem, the malicious code needs to embed itself into a digitally signed process of its host. This is the key of gaining access into the vendor's client's network. A digital signature verifies that a piece of software is authentic to the manufacturer, which permits the transmission of the software to all network parties. By hiding behind this digital signature, malicious code is free to write the steady stream of software update traffic between a compromised vendor and its client network. The compromised vendor unknowingly distribute the malware to their entire client network, and the software patches that facilitate the hostile payload contains a backdoor that communicates with all third-party servers. This is the distribution point for the malware. A popular service provider could infect thousands of businesses with a single update, helping threat actors to achieve a higher magnitude of impact with a lot less effort. When a victim installs a compromised software update from a service provider, the malicious code is also installed with the same permissions as the digitally signed software, and the cyber attack is then initiated. So the Kaseya outbreak was delivered via a malicious update payload sent out from the compromised VSA servers to the VSA agent application that's running on the managed Windows devices. So this gave Revil cover in several ways. It allowed initial compromise through a trusted channel and leverage the trust in the VSA agent code. So that is reflected, of course, in the anti-malware software exclusions that Kaseya requires for setup for its application and agent to work properly. So anything executed by the Kaseya agent monitor is therefore ignored because of those exclusions, which allow Revil to deploy its dropper without scrutiny. The payload in turn wrote out the base 64 encoded malicious payload agent CRT to the VSA agent working directory for updates. The agent CRT is encoded to prevent malware defenses from performing static file analysis with pattern scanning and machine learning when it's dropped. These technologies normally work on executable files, though as we noted, since this file was deployed within a working directory that is excluded under Kaseya's requirements, this would not likely have come to play. So after deploying the payload, the Kaseya agent then ran a command string, which is a PowerShell command that attempts to disable core malware and anti-ransomware protections offered by Microsoft Defender. After a series of events, the payload then dropped an unexpected file, an outdated and expired version of Microsoft's anti-malware service executable. So this is a benign yet vulnerable application from Windows Defender signed by Microsoft on March 23rd of 2014. So this version of executable is vulnerable to site loading attacks. In a site load attack, the malicious code is put into a DLL named to match one required by the targeted executable, and usually placed into the same folder as the executable so it is found before a legitimate copy. So in this case, the agent.exe actually dropped a malicious file, a malicious DLL file alongside with the Microsoft Windows Defender's executable, which detects, of course, the malicious file and then loads it into its own memory space. So once the DLL is loaded into memory, the malware deletes it from the disk. And then from now, under the control of the malicious DLL, it begins to encrypt the local disk connected to removable drives or map network drives, all from Microsoft's signed application that security controls typically trust and allow to run unhindered. So let's take a look at a visual representation of the incident. So it started with this attacker gating system to the Kaseya VSA. So in this case, by using the zero-day exploit, which was reported in the CVE 2021-30116. And then to the second step, once the attacker actually has access to the system, he immediately stops the administrator access to the VSA and injects a necessary payload as a fake update. Then the fake update will actually attach to a task called Kaseya VSA agent hotfix. And then the fake update is deployed across the state, and then including all the MSP client, customer system, as well as the management agent update. So the management agent update is actually the Revil ransomware itself. So you see, this here is a Kaseya server which is run by, let's say, of course, an MSP. So this MSP has a number of clients. Because of this, Kaseya VSA has elevated administrative privileges and can put out a command to do whatever it wants, both good and bad. Because a hacker is able to exploit and use it for bad, all of their machines will do automatically what is told to them by this Kaseya VSA server. And in this case, what was told to them to do was to download that hotfix, which is an older version of Microsoft Defender, opens up a DLL, which then proceeds to encrypt the machines. So the tactics to evade malware protection used here: poisoning a supply chain while taking advantage of vendor carve-outs from malware protection, and site loading with an otherwise benign process are all very sophisticated. They also show the potential risk of excluding anti-malware protection from folders where automated tasks write and execute new files. So while zero-day supply chain exploits are rare, we already seen two major systems management platforms exploited in the past year itself. So even so, the anti-malware evasion used by this Revil attack was not unstoppable. And is able to be detected, or was detected, by a number of anti-malware products. The Revil payload itself was detectable by, of course, our F-Secure's endpoint protection using our cloud-based reputation for blocking files and domains. And our data guard access control functionality in our F-Secure Elements endpoint protection is also able to actually prevent the files from being encrypted if the Revil ransomware manages to execute in the system. Additionally, our EDR solution also detect a variety of activities taken by Kaseya attackers, including, of course, leveraging capabilities, the attacker excluding the malicious file directories from being scanned. So, of course, Kaseya now have actually released security patches to fix the vulnerability, but there is no denying that damages has been done. So here are some lessons from this incident thus far, along with some advice that's always applicable. So credit is due where credit is due. Kaseya's transparency, along with bold decision to actually shut out its entire SaaS infrastructure and immediate communication to the customers, indicate that the company is executing a structured response plan prepared for this sort of attack. Furthermore, the plan's implementation appears to have rolled out quite quickly as well, likely due to internal readiness and training. So every company could have learned from Kaseya's response to have a response plan, and more importantly, practice on how the plan would be executed in case of an attack. Here's a list of questions organizations can actually ask themselves the next time they are actually concerned about a cyber attack that made headlines around the globe. So what data are the attackers are going after, what progress or impact is already in the public domain itself. Is our response plan ready to help contain and mitigate this kind of incident attack? Are we able to actually identify the threat actors or the general profile? So this would be able to help you to prepare to fight against these kind of incidents itself. So the underlying problem is that the defenders actually have to get everything right. The attacker have to actually discover one mistake. Defenders have to actually abide by strict policies and processes, but the attackers, of course, follow no rules. So security is actually an ever-evolving practice, complicated by growing reliance on third-party vendors and software. That said, organizations can, of course, improve their prospects greatly by reducing attack vectors. So here are a few recommendations that all organizations can take now to protect against ransomware attacks. So first, of course, would be focusing on your defense strategy on detecting lateral movements and data exfiltration to the internet. Pay special attention to outgoing traffics to detect cybercriminal connections. If you can, try to restrict all outgoing data or outgoing traffic in your firewall rules as much as possible. Of course, back up your data regularly and make sure that you can quickly access it in an emergency when needed. So have to test whether the backup is actually working or not as well. And of course, to use the latest threat intelligence information to stay aware of actual TTPs, or what we call as techniques and procedures used by threat actors. And then the next would be, of course, evaluate software patching and proper patch management itself. Public-facing systems should always be prioritized. Always keeping software updated on all the devices you use to prevent ransomware from exploiting vulnerabilities, especially the old vulnerabilities as well. Just be reminded that ransomware attacks does not only exploit new vulnerabilities. Any old vulnerabilities that has not been patched is another attack surface that they can use as well. And then, of course, using solutions like F-Secure Elements endpoint detection response, which can help to identify and stop attacks at early stages before the attackers reach their main goals. And then one of the most, which a lot of people would neglect as well, would be, of course, to review all security policies, including user management, asset lists, and software management, and audit them to actually stay current with the threat landscape. Any policies for the systems that undergo constant changes should be reviewed on an ongoing basis. You will also need to review your firewall rules or policies, security processes, software and hardware version, whether do they still meet the requirements nowadays. And then, of course, develop a multi-layered defense strategy as well as a response plan, just in case of an attack. So practice, improve, and re-evaluate this strategy to ensure it keeps up with the ever-changing threat landscape itself. And then, of course, lastly, using a reliable endpoint security solution such as F-Secure Elements endpoint protection that is actually powered by exploit prevention, behavior detection, and of course, cloud-based threat analysis powered by our big data and machine learning as well. Our Elements endpoint protection also has tamper protection mechanism that can prevent its removal by cybercriminals. And thank you. That would be all from me. So we are now open for Q&A. Should you have any questions, we can actually open that up now.
Thank you very much. In fact, Andy is today is not feeling well because I think probably it's because of vaccine, right? But anyway, still he says he have done a great explanation. Really appreciate that. While waiting for us to get any questions from the rest, we understand that already probably some of these people who are using Kaseya they might already also have some EDR. Of course, what you're trying to say is that if they would have implemented a F-secure EDR, can I say that this thing will not happen?
We wouldn't say that it wouldn't happen, but it would help you to detect this incident earlier so you can actually shut down the server before it infects all of the endpoints on your system itself. Because one thing is our EDR, we would be able to detect, for instance, in this Kaseya incident itself, one of the steps that it takes is to turn off the Windows Defender antivirus, or even the Windows Defender settings are being altered from a PowerShell. So our EDR solution would be able to detect this kind of behaviors, because these kind of behaviors are not normal. So this will actually send an alert to the admins so they can actually know of such issue as well. So our solutions have a variety of mechanisms intended to trigger alarms when anyone attempts to actually, of course, disable or otherwise tamper with our security software as well. So preventing attackers' efforts to actually, of course, our F-Secure security control, as they have actually been observed with Microsoft Defender and other security products. So at least on this part itself, once we detect this, the end users would know there is some encryption attack is going on over there.
Okay, let's say I'm an IT manager, I'm already in the midst of looking for a few EDR solutions. For me to prevent this thing from occurring again, another Kaseya case or another Sunblock SolarWinds case, right? What do you advise me specifically the feature that I must look into for my EDR? Is it all EDR built the same? If not, what specific features that I got to make sure that I need to put in place to when I evaluate my next EDR?
Well, first of all, of course, the detection is very important. So because our F-Secure, we use big data analytics together with our broad context detection, which helps to link up all the information and show it much more easier for our customers to actually identify whether this attack is real attack or not. So of course, all EDR, they have their detections, and then the issue is whether it's able to provide an easier view for the admins to actually identify whether it's a threat or not. And then of course, we would have automated response as well, which if we detect these kind of activities, which of course with a certain threshold, as these kind of activities, we will put it as a severe case of incident as we recognize that, and then we will actually isolate it so that will prevent the attackers from performing further damages to the environment itself as well.
Okay, I'm always having these worries that I'm already using some endpoint, and it is a hassle for me to change my endpoint. If I would actually explore to change to F-Secure, is there any tools or way or approach that F-Secure has to make my worries less so that I can change my endpoint or EDR easier? Do you have such things?
Well, fortunately that our solution is quite simple to be deployed. So during installation, it will actually automatically detect any third-party application or any competitor software over there, and will remove it automatically before installing our solution on it. So the end users, they do not have to do anything or they need to remove themselves or whatsoever. So the deployment just need to deploy it, and then it will automatically install and remove any competitor software. So there's no need for another step of uninstallation needed to be done manually from the host itself.
Okay. Mr. Henry was asking, based on your past experience, right, what are the challenges that we might face in implementing an EDR if this organization is running a multiple location? They have branches everywhere, perhaps 50, 100 or 200 branches. What could be the challenges that we need to face?
I would say the only challenge that they might face is their own logistics. So whether how they want to plan out the deployment, because once they deployed it, there isn't any issue on viewing, because all of the hosts will be reported to the cloud service, and then all of it will be managed via a cloud portal. So there is no worry about whether this is a different location, it's not connecting and so whatsoever. So all of it will be managed via a single cloud portal.
Okay, I understand that your EDR is connected to cloud. What assurance can you give us that your cloud is secure? You're not getting my private data, confidential data into the cloud.
That is actually a good question. So our company is actually a European company. So we are actually bound by the GDPR rules that is set for all across the Europe companies itself. So in GDPR rules, it is actually stated that we do not collect, of course, personal information and so on. So the data that we actually collect for our EDR is just the events that's occurring on the host itself or the system. So we do not actually collect any personal information or any files from the host itself. So we are just collecting the information on what this file is executable is doing, whether is it calling a PowerShell, is it actually downloading a different file, or is it actually calling to disable some registry, this kind of events. So we are not actually collecting any Word documents or any files and so on, or any other personal information. It's all the events that's actually occurring only.
Okay. If I won't be able to actually remember all those things that you talked about. So what is the one and only, if I want you to just say one and only thing that to make me remember things, what will be the things that you must remind me to remember? If I don't tend to remember the rest of it, what is the one key thing that you want us to remember after this sharing?
Well, one thing I would actually advise to remember is, of course, to have a competent endpoint security on your system itself, including an EDR solution if possible. Because endpoint protection, yes, they can protect you onto a certain level. But for this kind of detection, because they are using legitimate processes to actually perform this kind of acts, which the endpoint protection would not be blocking that, because they are already added exclusions into it and they're using trusted files itself and processes to run. So this is where EDR comes into place. Even though they are legitimate process, but they are actually acting in a different manner where they are supposed to act, we will actually be able to detect that and provide an alert informing at least this the admins they are doing this which they're not supposed to. So please check whether is it something that they are doing wrong and things like that. So this will create awareness that something is actually happening in your environment and provides a faster detection to this kind of incident itself as well.
Okay, thank you. And there's one question from Mr. J. Mr. J asks, "Hi Andy, by saying that the window defender is a loophole in the Kaseya case, did Microsoft provide any solution on this? As far as he knows, Microsoft Defender itself also have their own licensed Microsoft Defender antivirus with EDR. Any suggestions on those companies who are using the licensed Microsoft Defender with EDR?"
Okay. Currently, because what they current solution that they provide is, of course, the new detection for it. Because right now they use the legitimate process to their own old Windows Defender to perform such attack. So of course they would have released a new patch to prevent this kind of attacks as well, together with new detections based on the indicators of compromise provided by Kaseya itself to detect this kind of events as well. So the EDR should be able to detect this kind of incidents in the near future as well.
So what you're saying that Microsoft EDR by now would have be able to actually detect this problem.
By right, yes.
Okay. So the advice is that don't get too worried if you are using EDR Microsoft, even though we don't sell it, but still good enough for you to actually protect it now. Of course, we will welcome your time to evaluate F-Secure EDR. That will be even better. Okay, thank you very much. I think let me just make a final conclusion whereby antivirus software, we've been doing a good job for the last many years. However, we have actually seen cases like Kaseya, Sunblast, all this were happening in the legitimate traffic, legitimate channel where your firewall were not able to block, your antivirus were not able to actually detect and stop them because it is actually it is allowed by this default antivirus that you are by default by this antivirus, which is were not detectable, and which is why we are talking about contextualization, whereby we're actually looking into the legitimate activity, but we try to actually contextualize, try to understand what is the motive behind of this such behavior, and then from there we do the verification. From there we were able to detect what is the possible possible impact, and would be able to actually block you from there. And I think that Malakov was actually asking, hi, do you think that for everyone having managed services, we should have a response plan for if the same scenario happen? So what Malakov is trying to ask is that that should we have a response plan for such incidents?
Yes. No matter whether do you even have managed services or not, I would say everyone should have a response plan for any incident that might happen, because this supply chain attack is just one of it. So it does not mention, it's not just for people that has managed services would happen. So it would happen if you have any other software that you're still, because everybody would be using third-party vendor softwares. So which means they are supplying you with the software, with the updates and so on. So it does not limit to managed services. So that's why we would recommend to have response plan whenever there is a chance for you to be actually get attacked by a ransomware.
Yeah, I agree very much, because we always been talking about people, process, and technology. F-Secure, they have the technology for you to do the detections. But once detected certain incidents, you need a response in terms of the process. What do you do with it and who to do it? The people, the process, and technology should be in place together to actually come up with a holistic protection strategy for your cybersecurity attack. Yeah. Is there any further questions? If no, as promised, today we have achieved our agenda. We actually make it very short, brief, because we know everybody is busy. We just want to actually bring up the idea as to understand what is this Kaseya case is all about, and what can we do moving forward to prevent this thing from happening. We believe we have achieved our objective today, but if you still have certain further questions, we welcome you. You know all of us, you know our account manager, you know myself, and in fact, you also actually directly can actually approach F-Secure. From there, if there are any further questions that you're not able to ask us, or you later only then you did realize, hey, you forgot to ask these questions, we'll be more than happy to actually have those questions answered for you. Or even, it will be even better if you want to actually see, hey, you've been talking that F-Secure can do this, let me see it in real. So then you want us to actually arrange a separate session for you to do a demo, actually to evaluate how these solutions are working in real situation to block and to protect this. We'll be more than happy to do so. With that, you don't have any further questions. Andy, do you have any last words to give before we end this session?
I believe you have covered most of the things already as well. But as Hon mentioned, if you do have any inquiries, please do not hesitate to reach out to us, so I can help to actually answer your other questions as well, should you have any.
Okay, with that, thank you very much. I wish all of you take care, stay safe, and be healthy, and really appreciate. And we look forward from in future we have more sessions. We love to share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Hong.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Wow, that's very good. Thank you very much, Andy, for you have done a fantastic job. Clear, nice, precise, and informative. Really appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
We hope
Hopefully that
there
is short enough.
Yeah. Because we purposely do not want to keep it within 1 hour because we do not want to spend too much time of our colleagues, our friends and customers. Yeah.
Yep, true. All right then.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Bye-bye.
See
Bye-bye.
you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hi, Amy. Thank you very much. You can actually shut down the session now. Thank you.